Capturing the world. Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is David Carmichael II. And before we get into our new episode, I want to tell you about my brand, Capture the World. Capture the World is a black-owned streetwear brand from Hampton, Virginia. Capture the World represents the young generation of creatives around the world. Next up are millennials and Generation Z. What is a creative? A creative can be described as an individual that sees the world differently from everyone else. A creative can be looked at as a leader or a person that influences people with their gifts and talents. A creative uses their gift from God, not for money and fame, but for the greater good of the world. A creative thinks outside of the box and brings innovation in the world. Anyone from the young generation can be considered creative and capture the world, but those people that are ambitious, passionate, and have perseverance are the only ones that can bring their gifts and talents into fruition and capture the world. Are you a creative? Do you want to capture the world? Capture the World Apparel plans to provide the highest quality, high fashion, and give a unique look. You can visit our website at www.capturetheworldapparel.com. The world is yours. Capture it. This episode was recorded on August 26, 2020. Hope you enjoy. Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is your host, David Carmichael II, and this is episode 52 of the Capture the World podcast. I appreciate all of my listeners, all of our Spotify listeners, all of our Apple Podcast listeners, and YouTube listeners. I thank you for continuing the route with the show, and I have another guest on the show, a great special guest. Her name is Kimberly Moreau. She is an accomplished educator, author, and a speaker worth knowing about. She's also has been in the school system for about 20 years, being a principal. And I want to introduce Kimberly Moreau. How you doing today, Kimberly?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
No doubt. I thank you for being part of the show. You're the first of your kind, as far as a guest on my show, as far as being an educator. I haven't really had an educator on my show before, so this is the first time. And I'm very excited to talk about, what you do for a living and what have you done in the past as well. So yeah, let's just go ahead and get into it. I saw that you were raised in Los Angeles, and you was raised in Los Angeles and you went to Morris Brown College. How do you, describe your life growing up in Los Angeles in California?
Oh wow, it's interesting. I grew up in a time period. I grew up in the 70s.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
In the 70s and the 80s when we didn't have helicopter parents, and that was at a time period when our folks told us to go outside and play, and we went outside and spent the entire day playing. And only came in when it was time, for dinner. But I pretty much had a regular childhood with, grew up with my parents, still married and siblings in the house. And so I would really characterize it as a pretty normal childhood for the 70s and 80s. Nothing out of the ordinary until 1987. But up until that point, we were a pretty normal, regular family.
Gotcha. So, what made you want to, I've seen that you did, you've been 20 years of teaching. What made you, want to get into that?
So actually, when I was growing up back in the day, I would always play school with my siblings and with my neighbors across the street. Mm-hmm. And so I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved learning. I loved teaching others. So for me, even though I kind of had some obstacles along the way, and they were kind of self-made obstacles. I created these obstacles and made them for myself, but
Right.
um, that was something I always wanted to do. So, even though it was some twists and turns along the way, I was so happy when I actually graduated, got my master's degree in 1996, a year after my 10-year high school reunion. So I was pretty excited to be starting my career. What was it? 11 years after I graduated high school. So.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Yeah.
So, were you just involved in high school? Like, were you just a teacher in high school, or did you like do middle school and elementary school as well, or where did you teach?
Say that one more time. I'm sorry.
So like, were you just a high school teacher when you first started, or did you do like middle school and elementary school too?
No, I was a high school teacher. So I taught high school for 13 years. And then I went into administration. And in administration, that's when I started working with all grade levels. I was a principal of a K through 12.
Gotcha. So
yeah.
So when you get into administration, like what are like the steps it takes for you to become, go from a teacher, to a principal? Like what steps did you have to take to get to that certain level?
So it's another level of schooling and accreditation that you have to go through. So I think my program, I think my credentialing program, I think it took me about 2 years because I was doing it in addition to working full time. So it's not like you quit work and then you go work on your administrative credential. Mm-hmm. You're working while you're doing that. So it takes a little bit longer. So it took about 2 years for me to get my administrative credential, which meant I had to do some volunteer hours in administration. With my principal, I would go into the office and be his assistant. For me, it just was a natural fit within my leadership capabilities. I was a department chair. I was over so many different programs at my school that my principal just said, listen, you really need to go into administration. You're already doing administrative duties, so you might as well get paid for it. And so for me, it was just a natural next step after teaching.
Okay. So I know you was raised in Los Angeles. Was like the schools you were in, was that still in the LA area, or where exactly were they at?
LAUSD. I'm a product of the Los Angeles Unified School District. I went to schools in LA from K through 12.
Okay, cool. So like, what was the hard part of being a principal? Like, did you have like to suspend kids and stuff like that, or like did you have the authority to do all that stuff? Like, what was like the hard things about being a principal?
You know what the hardest thing about being a principal is? You're having to juggle the needs of your staff, the parents, and the district officials, because a principal is really middle management.
Mm-hmm.
So the parents wanted certain things, and I wanted to make sure I was working with the parents. And then the staff would want certain things, and maybe their needs and the parents' needs didn't necessarily line up. So I'd have to try to work out a compromise between my staff and my parents. And then I had the district who, they were like, look, your teachers need to be doing X, Y, and Z, or the parents can't have this. But I had to try to, buffer between all of those entities. So that could be pretty stressful. But I try to make it work, because in everything, I was trying to do what was right and the best thing for the students. So even though the parents were saying they needed this, they were saying that on behalf of their students. And the teachers were trying to work on behalf of the students. And so, but just trying to make sure that everybody's needs were being met. That's a hard position to be in. So that's a little difficult.
Yeah, I can see that because, people, like you said, the parents might want something from you as a principal, and the teachers might want something from you, and those two things might be different between the parents and the teachers. So it's like, if you give what the parents want, the teachers might be like, well, what about what we want? So I guess it's just a balance of just trying to provide, just do the best you can to provide the best results for both parties.
Yes. And just making sure everything lined up with what was in the best interest of the student.
Right. Yeah, definitely that as well. Definitely that. And, lead it on to that. I see that you have a book called Eight Pearls of Wisdom, and from what I seen about it, it's like advice for parents as far as the importance of education among their kids. Can you kind of provide a little more detail on that?
Yes. So really, I call it my peek behind the curtain, because as a principal in education, there really were a lot of things that I would want to advise parents to do, but I also had to serve what was in the best interest of my district as well. So some things I may want to tell the parents, but that wouldn't necessarily be something that the district would want them to have that particular information, because then they would be on the hook for paying for it.
Right.
So this particular book, I call it, it's like when Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz goes and peeks behind the curtain and finds out all about Oz. Mm-hmm. So it's the parents' peek behind the curtain. And so I'm really just trying to give them some benefits of, the information that I learned throughout my many years of being as a classroom teacher and as an administrator, of what they can do to advocate for their child. And then there are some other things about really empowering their children, to make sure that their children feel supported and that they feel like whatever dreams that they have, they can make them come true. But one of my biggest takeaways, or one of the biggest takeaways I hope people come away from the book, is in the first chapter I talk about it's never too early to plan. Because I would have parents, I was a high school teacher for a while, and then I was a high school administrator for a while. And I would have parents come to me their child's freshman year of high school and say, what can I do to prepare my child for college? Mm-hmm. And I would always not say this out loud to them in a particular way, but I would basically say to them, yeah, that's something you should have been doing in elementary school.
Right.
And here's why I say this, that for a lot of parents, they tend to believe that you start preparing for college or career once the child gets to high school, and then the teachers will start working with them. But in reality, everything is so competitive now that really as parents, we can start guiding them in the direction of college and career very early on. And it doesn't have to be as far as, I'm going to send them to these SAT prep classes. No, I just mean by exposing them to all of the various careers that are out there. And this is something that regardless of how much money you have, everybody can do this. It's free to go to the library. Mm-hmm. It's free right now with COVID. I understand it's a little tricky trying to go to the library and get on the internet. But once all of this passes, it'll be free to go to the library. It'll be free to take virtual field trips. And some parents will say, I don't have the money to do those things. But a lot of things are free. It's free to go to the park and look at the different things at the park, and then talk about the different careers that people that work in a park or work in a museum or work at the zoo, all of the different careers that go into that one place. So there are just a lot of things as parents they can start doing while the child is young, as opposed to waiting for them to get to high school. So that's one of my biggest things that I'm the most proud of and the most passionate about in my book.
No doubt. And to add on to what you just said, you know, it seemed like, parents, or when it comes to preparing kids for college, it's always that, oh, well, I might not have enough money to start a college fund for my kid. And that's what it always seems like. That's like, okay, when you speak about preparing your kids for college, the first thing we might say is, I don't have enough money to put money aside for my kids' college fund. But the thing you just said, the other things you just said can add on. Like it doesn't always have to be about money. Just providing, I guess, the education, just for them to make their own decision on what they want to do in life, like knowing what they want to do maybe ahead of time. And college might not always be the answer. It's different. You got trade schools, you got different options as well. But I guess as a parent, do your best to give them as many options and as they can, different options to look at. So about the time they get to high school, they might have an idea of what they want to do already, and they can better prepare yourself for that goal, that career.
Exactly. And that is irregardless of, as a parent, we may think, well, I don't think my child will be able to do that. But if we keep all of their options open, they may discover something within that same field that they may be able to do. But because we didn't shut the door, oh, well, he can't be a doctor, he's not going to be able to do that. But because we left the medical field open, there are so many other careers within the medical field. They may not be a doctor, but because you're teaching them and you're exposing them to all these other careers within the medical field, they might end up wanting to be something else in the same field, but maybe not a doctor. And that's the thing that I want parents to understand, that it's really about exposure and letting them see all these different things. And again, you don't have to be rich. Get on a computer and do virtual tours.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't afford to go there in person, you like you said, you got virtual tours. It might not be the exact same, but it's still stuff out there for you to do to kind of not get over, but like get around what you can't do at the moment. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think, and if you don't mind, I think especially now with COVID-19, a lot of parents are realizing that there are other ways. Virtual field trips are a big, huge thing right now. And those are things that I used to do with my students all the time. We would take virtual field trips to Washington, D.C., Minnesota, because there are different museums I wanted to take them to, but I couldn't afford to take the class. And so we would do a virtual field trip. So I think right now with the pandemic, there are some positive things that are coming out, that parents are learning there are other ways to do things and not just having to physically go there.
Yeah, that's facts. I definitely agree with that. And speaking of COVID, my question about that is, it's been a lot of stuff going on with kids going back to school. And I know I live here in Virginia. I don't have any kids myself, but I know people that do have kids, and they're struggling to figure out what should they do. And even the school board don't even know what's the best option. But I think for right now, they're saying, in Virginia, I live in Hampton, Virginia, and they're saying like the first 9 weeks, they're going to have them do online schooling. Just overall, how do you feel about that? And what do you think is the best option to kind of, still educate these kids, but, be safe during the COVID-19 pandemic?
That, you know what, that's a tough one.
I know it is.
Obviously, to be safe, the online learning is the safest thing. But one of the issues that I'm having with the online learning, one of the things that I've done since all of this is I've created a homeschool teaching support business. So it's most people will say, oh, a tutoring service. Not really a tutor. I'm a teacher or academic coach. But so what I do is I come out to the parents' homes and I help their children navigate through this distance learning. Mm-hmm. So one of the issues that I'm seeing is that the teachers are assigning all of this work as though school is still in and as though they can actually sit individually with the student and help them through this. Right. And as though everyone's Wi-Fi is always going to be working properly. And so the students that I work with right now, and they all happen to be boys, they all happen to be African-American males, and they're young. The oldest one is in 9th grade, and they are having issues with, I don't understand how to submit this. I don't understand what they're asking me. I don't understand how to get to this. And I'm looking at the amount of work that they're giving them, and this is only the second week of school for us. Mm-hmm. And it really, I feel as an educator, there should have been a little bit more of a segue into this for the kids and for the parents. And so the parents I work for, they've hired me because they were struggling when the school went to virtual learning last year. And so they didn't want to struggle again this year. So they brought me on board to assist them. And so just the sheer volume of work that they're having to do, and they're still trying to navigate the whole online learning. So I feel like that's kind of, that's problematic. But in the interest of safety, of course, they should definitely do the online learning. But I would also say modify some of it.
Yeah, I mean,
definitely modify some of it and not make it so it's a lot of work. And one of the parents said to me, she said, this is a lot of work that I have to do because the parents that I'm working for, they're still working.
That's what I'm saying.
They are still working, and the parent I work for, my time ended with their children at 4 p.m. And then I went to work with another child. And then at 7:30, they were calling me because he still needed some help. And so she said to me, I don't think these teachers understand that we parents, we're still working. And they're giving them the assignments, but we're the ones having to do the teaching. So while they're doing the lectures on Zoom, but if the student didn't understand the lecture, it's like some students don't. And so it's a little, it's problematic. It's problematic. I would just like to see teachers modify assignments a little bit more and really try to help the parents with the process, because the parents are struggling. And these parents have been saying they're fortunate to be able to hire someone. Not all parents are in a position to hire someone to help them.
Right.
So
yeah.
And the sad part is it's really going to take its toll on our Black and brown students, on our students that are already behind in the achievement gap, who are already struggling before all of this COVID hit. And now they're even going to be further behind. So I don't know if I answered your question, because I really don't have an answer to it,
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think it's an answer for real.
I can with the parents that I'm trying to work with, and I think that's what everybody's trying to do, is do the best they can.
Yeah, like I don't think it's even a correct answer to that. It's like nobody, especially if it's something that you've never seen before, and everybody's dealing with this at the same exact time. You don't have anything to look back on how somebody else had, you know what I'm saying? So it's like
Right.
Everybody's just winging it, and it's like you can't really say what's correct and what's not correct because this is the first time this has been done ever. So it's like everybody's it's like trial and error. Let's see if this works first, and if it's not, we got to change it up. And if it does work, maybe we can keep going doing it how it is. But it's real crazy. And one thing I can add on to that is, like when it comes to online stuff, it seems like they do give more work when you do online classes, especially like I went to college and I took a couple of online classes, and when you're not doing like an actual in-person lecture, when you're doing an online class, it seems like they give you more work to make up for not being part of a lecture. So it's like, I understand that you kind of got to get the ball rolling a little faster when you're doing online stuff. But at the same time, it's like you don't want to, bombard them with work, and it kind of seems like it's busy work. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it seems like, sometimes the curriculum is just based off tests, like lecture to test, lecture test. But it's like, is there a way that the curriculum for schools should change to kind of help students learn? Like, it seems like everything is based off tests. Like, learn this, take a test to see if you know. Learn this, and then take a test. Like, is that what it's all about? Or is there a way we should teach students better in the future when it comes to education? Or what do you think about that?
There absolutely is a way, and not all schools are doing not all schools are doing, okay, learn the information, take a test. Unfortunately, more are doing it than others that are not. But one of the things that I am a huge proponent of, and I just did a workshop over the summer and I did a presentation on it, is project-based learning. And there are schools in the United States and more schools overseas that actually implement project-based learning as the full school curriculum. And so basically project-based learning is not that project that you may have done when you were in high school or elementary school where you do a poster board and you make it look really pretty and you hang it up on the teacher's wall.
Right.
That's
I remember those.
Project-based learning. Project-based learning is actually taking a question. So I'll give you an example. Right now, with everything going on with the social injustice, a lot of project-based learning activities are centered around how to use your voice, how to stand up for yourself. And so the students would research different times in history where people use their voices. They would research different groups that are making a difference in changing or in social justice. They would also interview people who were a part of these social justice movements, and they would work together as a team. Project-based learning also teaches skills that you actually use in the workplace. So the whole thing of reading a chapter and taking a test, that's not really a skill that we use in our workplace. We use skills where we have to collaborate with team members. We use skills where we have to communicate in writing and orally. We use skills where we have to critically think. So these are skills that are used in project-based learning. And like I said, there are some schools and some school districts that this is the way they implement their curriculum. But unfortunately, it's something that it takes a preparation. And so it's a transition period, and people really need to buy into it. And not everybody has fully bought into or fully understand it. So you don't see it on a wide scale in all schools. But it definitely is something that many schools should be doing, project-based learning. Really, many schools should be doing it.
Yeah, that does sound like a good idea, because it's people that they might, can comprehend the lecture and the information that they're receiving, but some people are not good test takers, and some people get anxiety from taking tests.
Yes.
You might know it like right before you take it, and then once the paper lands on your desk, you just have a blank moment, like, oh my God, I just can't remember none of this stuff. It's like, it's a lot of pressure, man. I've been through it too. Like, going to school and especially like learning math and, having to learn these formulas, and then you study the night before, and then you think you know it, but you're so nervous and so anxious to take the test, and then you just go blank, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on? So yeah, that does sound like a good idea. It should be more of that implemented into the school systems, because it seems like it's the same formula.
It's a great website out there, PBL Works.
Okay.
I think it's PBL Works. I don't know if it's .com or .org, but basically if you type in project-based learning, it'll direct you to this website. It's free. You can join for free. You can get access to projects, so you're not having to create, think of projects on your own. It's an excellent resource for any teachers that, want to implement it. And right now, in the time period that we're in, it's a great teaching tool. It's a great teaching tool because the students can still collaborate and work together as a group, just the same way they're getting together and working via Zoom. They could also get together and work via Zoom on a project-based lesson. So if you have any teachers that are out there, I would really highly encourage them to check out project-based, I think it's called PBL Works, and just look and see it, some of the topics. And you can do this with grades as early as kindergarten.
Cool. Yeah, any parents with kids, any parents, please take a look at that website that Kimberly just provided. And my next question is in regards to parents and teachers. What do you think, how can the relationship between parents and teachers be better? And I'm saying that because I know people that are teachers, and, their experience of being teachers and dealing with kids. And, some of these kids might be coming from, broken homes, broken families, or just, having busy parents, and they might work 2 jobs and they can't really provide the support for the kids in regards to their education. And that can take a toll on the teachers because, they're just trying to do their job and, teach these kids. But, you might have a kid that's coming from a messed up situation, and they're not going to be able to focus in school, and that makes it hard for the teacher to teach. And the student acts up, the teacher can't really do anything too crazy, or the teacher might get in trouble. So, like, as a whole, like, what do you think are some solutions to that, or to make it easier for both parties, parents and teachers?
The best thing or the best advice, it worked for me in all the years as a teacher and as an administrator. It's building relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Building relationships from day one. When I was a principal, I would encourage my teachers, do not wait until the student does something bad to contact the parent. Don't wait until back to school night to meet the parent.
Mm-hmm.
And then the parent doesn't show up, and then you're upset. Call the parents as soon as you get that phone list and introduce yourself and start building that relationship with the parents. And a lot of times what I found was, because I wasn't calling when something went wrong, and I was calling to say, hey, this was a favorite call of mine. Hey, I had a chance to meet your daughter today. Thank you so much for sharing her with me. And the parent be sitting on the phone going, okay, and I was like, oh, I really liked their energy, or I really liked her. I would find something positive about every student that I met on the first day. Or I would say, oh, I could tell that he has a sense of humor, something like that.
Right.
And the parent would drop their guard and start telling me things. Oh, okay, well, if they act up, will you make sure you call me, or, something like that. But it's because I didn't wait until something bad happened, to introduce myself. And I never came across as, I know everything, I'm the teacher. It was, I'm so glad to get to know your child. Anything you think I need to know? And just inviting them to share information. But relationship building, that's the big thing. And I would tell parents, we have to be together on this. Otherwise, we don't want them to do us the way a child does the mom and dad. Go ask mom. Mom gives you the wrong answer or gives you the answer you don't want to hear. So you go ask dad. We're together on this. And so students figure out really quick, okay, they can't play. They can't play the teacher against the parent.
Right.
So just building relationships early with the parents. And so that's the biggest advice. And it's the easiest thing to do. Let me take that back. It's not easy. It's not easy if you're in high school to make 180 phone calls.
Yeah, that can take some time
easy.
though. Right.
That is not easy. And I will not sit here and say it's easy. That is not easy. When I taught high school, I would be there for hours after school, and then I would do it during my prep. But sometimes if you put in the work up front, you put all that work in on the front end, then on the back end, you don't have to worry about all those things. So I would rather do that. I would spend time making a lot of phone calls at the beginning. And the kids would come back the next day and say, did she call your house? She called my house. Oh, my mother said she was so happy. They would be so excited to know that the teacher called their house, spoke to their parent, and said nice things about them.
Yeah, no doubt. That probably make them want to, if it is some kids that are known to act up, they might, want to be reluctant to want to act up now because of what you already said about them. So they want to hold up that reputation of whatever you said about them. Like, okay, I don't want to prove her wrong that I'm not what she just said I was. So I'm gonna go ahead and just be good or keep up what I am doing right.
Mm-hmm. And then another thing is I always would tell my staff this. Remember, we're smarter than them. We're smarter than them, one, because we have a lot more years of experience. So sometimes you just got to outsmart them. And so I would always tell the parents, and I will help them. There's no reason they should fail my class. Just have them come to me for help. I will tutor them. I will help after school. And so when the students start, they're not getting a good grade, they would say, well, Miss Brock says she would help. You better go in there and get some help from her.
Right. No, that's right. Yeah.
So I would do that. Yes.
Okay. So, I don't want to run short of time, but I know my next question is, in regards to what you just said about the teachers having to take a step above their normal, I guess their comfort zone, to be a better teacher, to provide better assistance to the parents and to help the parents along the way. What do you think about teachers getting paid more? I know that's always been like a conversation that we've been having for years and years and years of teaching. Do you think, I know it's different from state to state, but do you think overall teachers should get paid more based on what they have to do, or is it just this what comes with the job and this is what you want to do type thing? You got to accept it. Like, what do you think on that?
Well, I say absolutely 100% teachers should get paid more. And here's the thing. This is what we learned, especially right now, again, with all this COVID. And what is revealed is the government can figure out ways to pay for things when they have to or when they want to. So they were able to pull trillions of dollars to pay, to supplement people's incomes or to supplement the unemployment, and unemployment is paid by the state. But the federal government was able to supplement that. So they could do the same thing with teacher salaries. Yes, it does go by the state, but the federal government could supplement teacher salaries. And it should not be based on if your test scores are high. As teachers, we do a lot of work, and you have to think of it this way. Every profession, from doctors to attorneys to rocket scientists, astronauts, every profession had a teacher to teach them.
That's facts, yeah.
We teach everybody. everyone. But I'm not necessarily going to come in contact with an astronaut. I won't necessarily come in contact with a rocket scientist, but every one of those professions have and will come in contact with the teacher. So
no doubt.
Pay us what we're worth.
Yeah.
Pay us what we're worth. And if the salary were increased, you would more than likely, there are some of us that are extremely gifted at our jobs, very gifted at our jobs, regardless of the salary. But then also you would open up the door to other gifted people who a salary is a concern. And they're choosing not to come into the teaching profession, and they're choosing to go into other professions that pay a lot more money. So you would definitely see more people with a gift for teaching who would come into this profession if the salary were competitive. So no, and I don't believe in that. Well, you knew the salary was low and you chose the job. Yeah. I chose the job because I love what I do and I love the students that I work with. But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't get paid what I'm worth. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that all these other teachers who are out here making lesson plans, working through the summer, preparing for the fall, it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be paid what they're worth. We should definitely be paid what we're worth. And we know after all of this has happened, we know that if the federal government wanted to support the states, they could absolutely do it if they wanted to.
Yeah, I can agree. And like a teacher, man, like after you leave work, you got work to do when you get home. Like, cause I know people that are teachers, and one of my ex-girlfriends was a teacher, and she would always tell me, oh yeah, work was crazy. Now I gotta come home and do my lesson plan. She'd be up until after midnight preparing the lesson plan. Then she had to get up, 4 hours, 5 hours later to come to work and teach and do it all over again. I'm like, man, I don't see how you do it. So I commend all teachers for what they do, and I definitely agree with for them getting paid more, because that's a demanding job. Like when you can't leave work and go home and just chill, and you have work when you get home, it's like that's a 24-hour job, and that can be exhausting on you. So yeah, I definitely agree with that, man. It's crazy. I can imagine.
And one of the things that is a real annoyance, I know, to a lot of teachers, and and to me too, is when people will say, "Oh, well, it must be nice you get off at 2:00 or you get off at 3:00." Oh, do I get off at 2:00 or 3:00? Because I can swear I was here until 8:00 last night doing my work.
I know that's right, exactly.
And like you said, and even when we get home, we're still working. And then if we have children, not only are we working on our schoolwork, but then we're helping our children with their schoolwork.
Right, it never ends.
For many years, my children spent a better part of their young lives on the school campus where I worked. I would pick them up from school, bring them to my school, help them with their homework, and then finish grading my papers. And start planning the lesson. I would bring their dinner to school with me so then I could feed them while I was at work. And then we would all go home, usually around 7. So then they have the time to, take their bath and get ready for school the next day. So
Man. That's a lot. Yeah. I agree with paying them more, man. I definitely do a lot. Y'all are very critical to like you said, like every teacher might not teach an astronaut or rocket science, but it's teachers that have come in contact with them, and everybody, like y'all are responsible for all the people that are doing great things now. It's like, it's like that student came from somewhere, and they might have had a teacher that inspired them to do what they do now. So it's like, you can't just not say teachers don't deserve what they're, what they want, so I definitely agree with you on that. And to wrap it up, I guess I got one more question, and I just thank you for all the information you've been providing me so far, man. It's been a great conversation. This is the Capture the World podcast, and so this is a question I ask every guest, and it's a very broad question, but just answer the best way you can. How do you plan to capture the world?
How do I plan to capture the world? Honestly, one student at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I just, one student at a time, because for every student that I touch, they touch many more people. And so that's really, I just try to make a difference in the lives of the students that I have access to, and then pray that they make a difference in the lives of other people. So I don't know if that's the answer to your question, but
that's great. It's however you want to do it. Yeah, it's however you want to do it. However you want to capture the world. That's what it takes for you. That's great. Like I said, one student at a time, and like I said, it's a domino effect. If you just influence a couple of people, and then those people influence more people, it's a domino effect. That's what it's all about. At the end of the day, influence as many people as you can, and then hopefully they will do the same thing that you did for them, just like that.
Yes.
Most definitely. Well, Kimberly, man, I thank you again for being part of this podcast. Like I said, I learned a lot of information from you, and just had I already had respect for teachers, but I've been able to gain a lot more respect for what y'all do, and especially during this time, trying to teach kids during this COVID pandemic, and just praying that things will get better, and kids can go back to school like they normally did. And just praying that it can get better. And like I said, I commend all teachers around the country, all around the world, for doing what they do. So keep doing what you do, and I'm thankful for you and everyone else.
Thank you for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And this is your host, David Carmichael II, and this is our guest, Kimberly Monroe. This is episode 52 of the Capture the World podcast. Thank you to all of our Spotify listeners, Apple Podcast listeners, and YouTube listeners. Y'all been great. Please leave a review. Please subscribe. Please pass the word on about the show. And we'll see you on the next episode. You have a good one. Peace. Good night.